location where he was facing from his perch on a nearby rooftop. Jan's attack did in fact result in the tragic death of one detainee and the injury to 2 other detainees. We have been able to confirm that Jan legally obtained an 8mm bolt-action rifle he used in the shooting in August of this year. Based on our investigation to date, we believe Jan acted alone, but I'll stress our investigation continues. This attack yet again underscores the dangers that law enforcement face daily. We continue to see an increased threats against law enforcement. This is the second attack in recent months on ICE facilities here in North Texas. I do want to take this opportunity to thank our law enforcement partners, some of whom are here with us today. When Jan began firing, agents from both ICE and the ATF put themselves in the line of fire to move individuals off the transportation vehicles in an attempt to protect and rescue those that were injured. I want to thank them for their bravery. The Dallas Police Department and the Dallas County Sheriff's Office also quickly responded to the scene without any hesitation and ran towards danger. Ultimately, they located the shooter, who was deceased by an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. I want to thank them for their prompt response and dedication to protecting and serving their communities. I also want to thank our partners that have assisted in this investigation. The Fairview Police Department, as well as our partners in Oklahoma, to include Bryant County Sheriff's Department, Durant Police Department, and Choctaw Nation Light Horse Police, as well as our personnel from San Antonio and Oklahoma City within the FBI that assisted. The FBI has dedicated its entire breadth of resources to ensure this investigation is completed thoroughly. The FBI stands with our law enforcement partners, and today we express that the attacks against law enforcement officers will not be tolerated. While we believe Jan acted alone, we are still asking that anyone with information about Jan or his activities report that to the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or at www.fbi.gov/Dallas ERO shooting. And with that, I will turn it over to Director Charles.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcos Charles. I am the ICE Executive Associate Director for Enforcement and Removal Operations. The attack on ICE's Dallas field office yesterday was tragic. And while our hearts and prayers are with the family of the detainees who were shot, the evidence is clear that this was intended as an assault on ICE personnel who come to work every day to do their job. Violent rhetoric has led to over 1,000% increase in assaults on ICE officers, and it has to stop. In contrast to those who would demonize our men and women, yesterday our brave officers ran back into danger, along with ATF, our partners, to save the detainees while shots were still being fired. Those ICE officers just showed the world who they really are. Law enforcement officers who want the best for our country. That's ICE, integrity, courage, excellence. They were willing to put their lives on the line to pull detainees out of the transport van to get them to safety. They are heroes, and I hope the media has the integrity to shine a light on this story. Enough is enough with the harmful lies and violent rhetoric. It has to stop. The shooter used the ICE tracking apps. Anyone who creates or distributes these apps that is designed to spot, track, and locate ICE officers are well aware of the dangers that they are exposing to law enforcement. It's a casting call to invite bad actors to attack law enforcement officers. It's no different than giving a hitman the location of their intended target, and this is exactly what we saw happen in Dallas yesterday. The media has been amplifying these apps even as we warned them it would only lead to more attacks on law enforcement. We truly wish we didn't have to say, "I told you so," but here we are. ICE continues to prioritize the safety and security of our personnel, detained aliens, and facilities. We will do everything possible to increase security to counter the increased wave of these lethal attacks. Again, we call on those who foment violence, and vilify our law enforcement officers to cease the dangerous rhetoric. We also call on law-abiding Americans everywhere to report any suspicious activity. The individual that was out there yesterday shooting at our agents and our officers was trying to take the lives of law enforcement people doing their job. Instead, he killed a detainee and shot 2 others. That is something that's unacceptable. The rhetoric that's out there on social media, the rhetoric that is being said by some community leaders in other states needs to stop. There's been an increase in violence against ICE agents, not only in Texas and Dallas, but across the country in violent protests. Again, I ask everybody to just stop. Thank you.
So we're going to open it up to questions now. So if you have a question, we'll direct it to the appropriate person. You're first up.
Sean Murphy with the Associated Press. Can you tell an estimate of how many shots were fired and how he was able to get those off so quickly with the bolt action rifle?
Yeah, so how I'll answer that at this point, again, I'll just remind you, this is an ongoing investigation. The ICE facility, the ICE office, really, it is a business office. This is where business is done on a daily basis by our partners at ICE. That is still an active crime scene. We still have personnel out there. As I mentioned earlier in my remarks, we brought in resources from San Antonio, Oklahoma City, obviously our own FBI resources here in Dallas, as well as folks from our lab, because we are going to do a thorough and exhaustive investigation and make sure that we have a full accounting of all the evidence that's at that scene. Again, those efforts are ongoing at this time. I'm going to go here real quick.
Thank you. Monica with NBC 5 WNO. Can you talk to us more about the detainees in the van? Were they transported to Alvarado, Texas, and what happened to them?
So you're referring to the detainees that were not injured?
Correct.
Yeah.
And maybe you could give us an update on the ones that are injured, identities, nationalities.
So I won't be providing any updates at this time on the identities of the detainees that were injured. ICE has a process from notifications to consulate and to next of kin. That process is ongoing, and so we'll defer to our ICE counterparts at some point to determine when it's the right time to release that information. The other detainees remain safe. They are victims as well of this violent crime, and they are people that we are actively interviewing as part of our investigation. Right here to the front.
Matt Kyle, Dallas Morning News. Ms. Larson had referenced anti-government, anti-federal government statements that Mr. Yan had made. Is there any more information y'all can release about what exactly was in those writings?
The clearest motivation for this attack are his own words. In his handwritten notes, he says, "I want to cause terror." He doesn't want to just impact the ICE agents and the law enforcement agents that were carrying out that mission yesterday. He wants to impact ICE agents and law enforcement across the country. Again, his words, cause terror for those employees across the country. Look over here.
Shannon Miller with NBC DFW. Any indication how long the suspect had been planning this attack?
Well, this is, again, as I referenced in my remarks, this is significant pre-planning months in advance. We know that he obtained the firearm in August. We also know that he was looking
Fall, the perfect time for football and feeding it alone.
I'm not going to wait to feed my lawn. I'm going to do it during the fall.
You gotta feed it.
Feed it.
Feed it.
Boys, what do we tell our neighbors in the fall?
Feed it!
Strengthen to protect all winter with Turf Builder Winter Guard.
Feed it alone. Feed it.
Did he have a relation with somebody who had been detained by ICE or mistreated by ICE for him to act this way?
Again, the clearest motivations at this point are the harm he wanted to cause to ICE. We're not aware of any specific relationships he had with anybody in detention. But again, our investigation's ongoing. We're going to unturn every stone here. And so that continues. Sir.
Omar Villafranca with CBS News. Secretary Noem has asked for increased security at ICE facilities across the country. Can you say what is going to be done to harden these facilities to protect agents and detainees?
So I cannot say what will be done by our partners at DHS to harden their facilities. What I can say, and I can draw upon just our recent experiences here in North Texas, is we've seen attacks now 2 ambush styles attacks where law enforcement was the target of individuals who did significant pre-planning and coordination to set up law enforcement, again, in an ambush style attack.
But anything that they physically are gonna do for these facilities, since they're still operating, to protect them? There's still no barrier up or anything like that at this facility.
I would need to refer to my partners from ICE from that.
Yeah, so currently, we're looking at hardening some of our facilities. Also, I don't want to give away any operational security as to how we're going to be doing that.
But
There are plans to harden some of our facilities. Back there.
Robbie Owens, CBS News, Texas. Were the Yon family immigrants?
Mr. Yan was not an immigrant. He was a United States citizen. He was here legally. I won't be going into the details on anybody other than Mr. Yan at this time. Ma'am?
You talked a little bit about the ICE agents, or the agents that were there at the location that helped him when shots were beginning to fire. Can you give us some more perspective on what the situation was with the detainees that were in the vans? Were they handcuffed? Were they shackled? Why weren't they able to get out of the vehicle by themselves?
Again, these were individuals that were detained by law enforcement. There were multiple transport vehicles at the facility at that time. Again, what I would stress at this point is under gunfire, multiple federal agents ran into that fire to remove these individuals and to attempt to render life-saving aid under the most dire circumstances.
Just for clarity, they were restrained.
They were being, the individuals in the vans were being strained. It's a proper procedure for transport. The individuals that are brave men and women that went out there to go help and rescue were the ones that were injured and could not leave the van on their own.
And we know that that's common, because we've seen obviously transports before, so we just wanted clarity to understand why they weren't able to leave on their own.
The other individuals that were in the van were able to leave on their own. It was the ones that were injured were unable to exit the vehicle. Sir, you, yeah.
Have you guys gotten any cooperation from the suspect's family and this idea that the anti-government, federal government attitude was there? Have any family members expressed any signs that we knew that this was happening, or was this just all kept?
Back to you, sir.
As is common in these investigations of mass casualty incidents, we are going to interview everybody we can identify that might have information about the motivations or who might have information about the pre-planning or who may have assisted in this attack. I won't be outlining every interview we conducted today, but we will be doing a thorough investigation. And again, one of the reasons we ask for additional information for the public is if there are those out there that had contact with Yan, we would like to hear from them, and we would like to gain an understanding of what their relationship was. I won't be going into details about other aspects of the investigation.
Luke Clary on WFAA. Can you expand on why you believe that he acted alone here, and can you go into it all, any activity he may have had in online forums or communities that may have influenced his action?
So again, the totality of our investigation includes interviews, canvassing areas, collecting surveillance video. We're certainly looking at his digital footprint online as well as digital devices. I'm not going to outline the details from every one of those. Again, his own words called out that he committed this act alone, and all the evidence we have to date would indicate that that's accurate.
Alex with Fox 4 News. You mentioned that the ICE facility, I believe, is still an active crime scene. Can you talk about what will happen in the coming days with that facility? Are there detainees being held there? Have they all been taken away? Is it operational as an office?
It is going to remain an active crime scene for some time. Again, we will be there as long as it takes to make sure that we've captured every piece of physical evidence.
Emma Ruby with the Dallas Observer. You mentioned the one bullet that was found with kind of ideological writing on it. Have any of the bullets found around the scene had any writing on them, or is it just the one?
Again, active crime scene. We're still collecting physical evidence.
Jim Schultz with ABC News. Around the crime scene, when this car was actually being towed, there was some writings on that vehicle. Can you give us a sense about what those were and how they play into your investigation?
So the vehicle was searched as part of our investigation. I don't have additional details to share with you now about any writings, but certainly if we have updates, we'll provide those in the future. Ma'am.
Ashley Pillow with CNN. Y'all mentioned that he used a ladder to get on top of the roof, or is that where
Yeah, that's
is that where his body was found?
he was found on top of a neighboring roof. We believe he used the ladder to access that roof. Sir?
Dave with Fox News Channel. Was suicide part of his plan all along, or was he cornered by law enforcement?
His handwritten notes indicate that he did not expect to survive this event. Sir?
Kevin Reese, WFAA. A personal question, if you would dare. Can you explain to people in this climate what it's like to be an ICE agent right now?
As I had said, the ICE officers that are out there right now, you've seen them in the, multiple times on the news. They're out there doing their job with courage and honor. Yes, there is a heightened sense of security for everybody, not only at work, but for their families, for their loved ones, mainly because of the doxing that's going on and the violent rhetoric that people have been perpetrating.
Mr. Charles, while you're up there, can I just follow up to that question and ask, of the agents that did respond on that day, or yesterday morning, can you tell us what they were wearing at the time? Because I know sometimes ICE agents do and don't have bulletproof gear on. Can you give us an idea of how they responded, what they had on them at the time?
So they're wearing their normal gear, and it was not only ICE agents, it was ATF agents also that went out there and heroically came out and under fire went to rescue those individuals.
Have you spoken to them?
I have spoken to one of them so far, but I haven't spoken to the others. They're doing okay.
All right, can you
Yeah.
talk to us about the immigration status for those individuals who were injured? What's their immigration status is it gonna change? Maybe perhaps even those who were in the van, ACU?
The individuals that were in the van will be going through due process, and they'll go through the whole immigration proceeding. So I'm not going to go into what their status is currently.
And those who were injured?
Same thing.
All right, folks, we have time for one more question.
When
Please tell us where the papers were found in Fairview, Oklahoma.
that one's for you.
So again, I'm not going to detail every aspect of the case. We did search his residence, and that is where we found the handwritten notes. And that's all the time we have for questions today. When we have more updates, we'll come back.
Declaro abierta la
The 9th plenary meeting of the General Assembly is called to order. The Assembly will hear an address now by His Excellency Mohammed Yunus Menfi, President of the Presidential Council of the State of Libya. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Your Excellency Annalena Baerbock, President of the 80th session of the General Assembly of the United Nations, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Majesties, Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Libyan people, I congratulate you on the 80th anniversary of the establishment of the United Nations. It remains one of the greatest pillars of the international order, one of the beacons of multilateralism over the history of humanity. We appreciate the holding of this session under the theme Better Together, 80 Years and More for Peace, Development and Human Rights. These are principles that we firmly believe in, principles that we are consolidating at the national, regional and international levels. As we celebrate this global anniversary, we're also celebrating the 70th anniversary of Libya joining the United Nations. It was the culmination of the struggle of the Libyan people when Libyans raised their voices in this hall, demanding freedom and independence following decades of colonization. The organization heeded this urgent call and adopted the historic resolution that led to the independence of Libya in 1951, reaffirming thereby the right of peoples to self-determination. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today representing the will of a people that is still holding on to hope, still believing in its ability to build a stable and prosperous future. Libya is not a zone for fighting. It's not an arena to settle scores or a place to which crises can be exported. It is a nation rich in natural resources, a cohesive society, with young people that have tremendous potential. They are the backbone to build a modern state. Since the very beginning, Libya's relationship with the United Nations has been based on partnership and mutual respect. And today, at this critical juncture, we look to the United Nations to play an effective and complementary role as it supports us to overcome this crisis towards stability and democracy. Despite the challenges, despite the threats, our people firmly believes that its experience, its society, the diverse society, its noble history will allow it to stay strong and overcome any crisis. But let me be honest with you. In Libya, multiple models and traditional mechanisms have been exhausted. They have not matched the complexity of the social and political situation. They've adversely affected the trust of Libyans in the proposed solutions. We all now bear a collective responsibility to reconsider these methods and to avoid temporary solutions and narrow understandings that only perpetuated the crisis. We firmly believe that any solution that does not restore the national ownership of the political track, any solution that is not derived from the free will of the Libyan people would be destined to fail, as we've seen in the past. In this context, we present to you a clear political vision based on 4 pillars. First, fully restoring national sovereignty and rejecting all forms of foreign interference, no matter what form it might take and no matter the justifications. Second, reaching an inclusive national consensus. To achieve an inclusive national consensus, I call for holding a sincere and comprehensive dialogue held in Libya with the participation of all stakeholders without exclusion. Third, uniting the sovereign institutions, most notably security, defense, and financial institutions, according to professional mechanisms without polarization and without setting quotas. Fourth, ending the transitional period through a clear constitutional basis, through free and fair elections, allowing Libyans to freely choose who would rule them without tutelage, without an imposition from external actors. Ladies and gentlemen, as we fulfill our political responsibility, and despite the challenges, we were able to maintain the highest level of stability. We were able to prevent a relapse into violence. We stress that the blood of the Libyan people is a red line. The territorial integrity, sovereignty, and social cohesion of Libya are non-negotiable. We have been observing the ceasefire agreement concluded in October 2020, and we've established the Committee on Security Arrangements in the capital, Tripoli. Under my direct supervision, this contributed to enhancing stability, rendering this current phase one of the calmest we've seen in years. Ladies and gentlemen, the Libyan economy, despite the challenges, can significantly contribute to the development of the country. The absence of a single budget and the absence of united institutions have been real impediments to development. We stress that we will support, and we do support, the economic track through the High Financial Committee to consolidate public spending and to enhance the principles of transparency, accountability, and equity in distributing wealth. Ladies and gentlemen, illegal migration is not only a security matter, it is a humanitarian challenge with deep economic roots. We call upon the international community to pursue a comprehensive development approach based on supporting and developing infrastructure and creating job opportunities in the countries of origin, in partnership with the African Union, rather than pursuing narrow security approaches that have proven to be ineffective. In this context, we have been supporting economic projects connecting the north and the south of the African continent to create a development environment obviating the need for young people to emigrate. Projects that restore demographic and economic balance in the African continent. Ladies and gentlemen, our firm position towards the question of Palestine is based on humanitarian principles and based on our commitments towards the Arab and Muslim world. Against this background, we condemn in the strongest terms the countries that are still hiding behind immoral neutrality towards the genocide and flagrant violations of international law to which the Palestinian people are being subjected, especially in Gaza. It was 8 decades ago that the United Nations was established, and the Palestinian people is still languishing under the yoke of occupation. We call for responsible international action that ends the occupation and guarantees the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the crises, despite the conflicts, despite the divisions that Libya had to endure, the Libyan people is still committed to the democratic track, is still believing that the rule of law and democratic institutions are not a dream but a legitimate right. It is time for the world to look at Libya not as a complicated political file, but as a story of resilience and free will, a nation that can be successful with a noble history, cohesive society, promising resources and free people, aspiring to peace, democracy and prosperity. Democracy is our choice, and peace and reconciliation are our destiny. Our history proves that our people can achieve reconciliation, can promote tolerance and justice. We most certainly can turn the page on the past. National reconciliation is not only a necessity to build the state, it is a national legacy that we cherish. We see the future Libya, a stable state, a sovereign state with united institutions, strong with its people, peaceful, open to the world, and an effective partner at the regional and international levels. Long live Libya, united and independent. Long live the Libyan people, free and dignified. May the peace, blessings, and mercy of God be upon you.
En nombre de la Asamblea.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Presidential Council of the State of Libya. The Assembly will now hear an address by His Excellency Duma Gideon Boko, President of the Republic of Botswana. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Madam President, Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we meet here today and this whole week in these hallowed precincts to remember the overwhelming gravity of the circumstances that gave birth to the United Nations, the ruins of war, a world poised to descend into further mayhem if courageous choices were not made. Leaders of great vision and courage stepped up. They realized that the charms and allurements of our unity trumped any tendencies to divide us, and from their conviction that humanity is better together, this institution was born. Their courage and fortitude merit our recurrent admiration. So I stand on this enchanted spot today to express my thanks and the gratitude of the people of Botswana to our forerunners and to all of you. We must recommit ourselves to the vision, peace, development, and human rights for all people in all nations. I stand here today in the composite capacity of citizen of Botswana and as an African. Yes, I am an African, stamp and root. For Botswana, the ideals of the United Nations are not abstractions. They are the foundation of our identity. Since our independence, we've sought to embody democratic governance, respect for the rule of law, including an international rule-based normative order, and the dignity of every human being. We reaffirm today our commitment to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and to advancing equality, including the protection of indigenous peoples, women and youth within our borders and across our region. Yet we also acknowledge that the pursuit of justice is an arduous journey. My administration has pledged to reform and strengthen institutions, enhance transparency, and root out corruption. We do so not for accolades, but because our citizens deserve governments that serve them with integrity. We are on a quest for integrity in African leadership. Excellencies, Botswana has been blessed with the gift of diamonds. For decades, this resource has financed schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. But today, we confront the fragility of that reliance. Diamond markets fluctuate. Our people's needs do not recede. Our vision is clear: to diversify our economy, empower our people, and create resilience. We invite global partners to invest in renewable energy, technology, sustainable agriculture, and value-added industries. We extend an open hand to businesses, innovators, and institutions ready to work with us on this journey of transformation. Botswana is a semi-arid country. Our people know the meaning of drought. We know the anxiety of scarce water, of crops that wilt and wither under a relentless sun, of livelihoods eroded by forces beyond our control. Climate change is not a distant threat, it is a present reality. That is why I've joined the Global Center for Adaptation, because adaptation must be at the center of sustainable development. I call on this Assembly to scale up financing for climate adaptation. Let us invest in water infrastructure, early warning systems, and climate-smart agriculture. Let us ensure that the promise of the Paris Agreement is not confined to paper, but realized in the lives of farmers, of herders, and children across the global South. Earlier this year, Botswana faced an acute shortage of essential medicines. This crisis exposed not only the vulnerabilities of our supply chains, but the wider inequities of the global health system. Access to medicines is a human right, not a privilege. We call upon the United Nations, international financial institutions, and the private sector to work with us to build resilient health systems. Together, let us explore local production, regional supply hubs, and fairer mechanisms to ensure that no nation is left to face health emergencies alone. As an African, I stand here as one of the trumpet voices of Africa, a continent all too often treated with affable indifference. Africa's voice is not heard. This United Nations cannot be truly international. It cannot be truly together and will not be better until our continent, home to 1/5 of the population of the world, is afforded an equal voice at the highest body of this organization. Friends and partners in the Permanent Five, it is time to make good on your promise to a continent. Agree a permanent seat on the UN Security Council for Africa for 80 years, the only continent without one. I also appreciate the decision by Britain, Australia, Canada, and France, among others, to give heightened attention and consideration to the Palestinian crisis. The carnage in Gaza, it must prick our collective consciences. We stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people in their pursuit of a home and of dignity. So too, we affirm our support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. We urge all parties to stop the war and seek a peaceful resolution. Distinguished delegates, the theme of this General Assembly is better together. This is not a slogan, it is a truth. We are better together in combating pandemics, better together in adapting to climate change, better together in securing peace, and better together in ensuring that human dignity is not a preserve of the few, but the inheritance of all. Let us therefore recommit ourselves to multilateralism, not as a matter of convenience, but as a matter of deep necessity. For none of us can weather the storms of this century alone. As Botswana looks to the future, we do so with humility, but also with determination. We stand ready to contribute, to partner, and to lead where we can. Together, let us ensure that when future generations mark 100 years of the United Nations, they will say of us, they were a generation that turned words into action, promises into progress, and hope into reality. I thank you. Thank you so very much.
En nombre de la Asamblea, agradezco.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Botswana. The Assembly will hear an address by Her Excellency Sylvanie Burton, President of the Commonwealth of Dominica. I request protocol to escort Her Excellency and invite her to address the Assembly.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Mabrika, Mabrika, I bring you greetings in my native Kalinago language, the language of the first people of the Caribbean, whom I am proud to call my ancestors. Madam President, on behalf of the government and people of the Commonwealth of Dominica, I am pleased to congratulate you, my fellow woman, on your appointment to guide the affairs of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, a responsibility for which you are eminently qualified. We wish you every success in your new role. Excellencies, I address you at a pivotal time in the history of this organization, and indeed of this world. I am reminded of the words of the famous British novelist Charles Dickens in his acclaimed novel, and I quote, "A Tale of Two Cities," end of quote. A novel set in a time of social upheaval, division, and transformation. I quote, "It was the best of times. It was the worst of times," end of quote. Although this novel was written over 160 years ago, these words remain relevant today. As we celebrate 80 years of the existence of the United Nations, we are living a tale of two worlds. For some, it is indeed the best of times. Strong economies, access to education, medicines, top-class healthcare, clean water, sanitation, and housing. They are at the frontier of the artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies with expanding digital infrastructure and rising standards of living. But for many, it remains the worst of times. Persistent poverty, growing hunger, displacement, instability, and war. Nations on the front lines of climate change, enduring the worst impacts and debt crises, not of their own making, but a price they pay for the excesses of others. Unfortunately, this is not fiction, but our shared reality. If we as the United Nations do not confront this duality, this inequality, we will write a catastrophe of our own. It bears restating that the UN was created 80 years ago to prevent wars, to promote peace and international cooperation based on ideals of mutual respect, human rights, and the rule of law. It has championed multilateralism, recognizing that no one country has the answer for the world's problem, that the world is interconnected, and to maintain peace, we should operate a rules-based and not power-based approach. A Tale of Two Cities portrayed a society where the powerful live in luxury and the oppressed suffer in silence. We can take heed of the warning that we glean from Dickens' work, that injustice should not be ignored, that when powerful nations impose their will on the less powerful without accountability or regard for the rule of law, they plant seeds of discord and future unrest. What have the lessons taught us? What should we ask ourselves as we gather year after year in this chamber? Are we truly listening to the nations that take the podium every year to decry poverty, inequality, climate change, underdevelopment, and conflict? Do we have a system where resources and decision-making are truly being equitably shared, or are we instead operating a system where power protects itself? I am reminded of the old African proverb, and I quote, "When elephants fight, the grass gets trampled," end of quote. We, the small island developing states, we are the grass. In today's geopolitical landscape, we feel the brunt of the impact when global powers engage in political, economic, or military confrontation. Economic sanctions, trade restrictions, aid conditionalities, conflict, and wars, to name a few, affect global supply and the affordability, availability, and transportation of goods and materials. This significantly increases the cost of doing business and the prices of basic foods on our supermarket shelves, putting several goods out of the price range of many. Madam President, we have come here time and time again to advocate for fairness, to advocate for understanding, to advocate for change in respect of matters that concern our very viability as small nations, on matters that affect our very lives and livelihoods. A major area for us is the devastating impact of climate change on our nations. Yet, in climate negotiations, powerful nations still drag their feet. Polluters enjoy protection, and adaptation and mitigation efforts are underfunded. Meanwhile, our countries, which everyone accepts contribute the least to the climate crisis, continue to risk extinction from rising seas, extreme flooding, devastating storms, drought, amongst many other negative impacts of climate change. Madam President, how can this be fair? How can this be morally defensible? While we complain about these things, equally horrifying is the indiscriminate and deliberate loss of life that we see around the world from bombings, from induced hunger, from sanctioned violence and genocide. We do not have the power to prevent the storms and to bring the rains where there is drought, but we do have the power to limit further climate change and help countries adapt and mitigate its impact. So too, we have the power to end wars and not start new ones. We have to be willing to talk to each other, to empathize with each other. We should return to the founding principles of the United Nations. Wherever there is conflict,